Hey guys, and welcome back to the ASX Investor channel, and welcome to another ASX CEO interview. Today, we're going to be discussing all things graphite. The EV battery material space has been running hot over this past year. There's a lot of excitement surrounding it, and EcoGraf, ASX EGR, is a company that's really been riding on the tailwinds of that journey. It's a fascinating company. They've developed a vertically integrated graphite supply business. It's really fascinating. Looking forward to unpacking the story with their CEO, Andrew Spinks. Andrew, welcome to the channel.
It's great to be with you.
It's an absolute pleasure. You must be very excited after the past year with everything that's been going on with EcoGraf. But as we've mentioned earlier, it's a journey of 7, 8, 9 years that you've really been going on. Did you want to talk about who EcoGraf is and what is the problem that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, sure. We've been focused on developing a vertically integrated battery graphite supply chain over the last 8 years, particularly in the last 5 to 6. We've got 3 core areas. One is a natural graphite project in East Africa that produces natural flake graphite. We've been working on a financing through the German-based KfW, which is Germany's largest state-owned bank, with our strong partnership with ThyssenKrupp and other European partners. We recognised 5 years ago the demand for battery graphite and the world and the supply chain being reliant on the Asian battery graphite using a hydrofluoric acid process. So 5 years ago, we set out to develop our own proprietary purification process, and we've taken that forward to a development stage as well. And we've done a lot of work planning to locate our first facility here in West Australia to produce 20,000 tonnes of spherical graphite, which is about matched to market on an ex-Asia basis. We've also taken that purification process and applied it to recovery of the carbon anode material. And that really is an exciting opportunity. It's early stage, but we're utilising our purification to recover that carbon anode material and support the circular economy. Recycling is becoming a very hot topic, particularly over the last 12 months with the European changes. So it is an exciting time. We've done a lot of work. We're very technically focused company, and we believe we bring a full vertically integrated supply chain for battery anode to the emerging EV market.
I appreciate that background. And it's interesting because we all know about the mega trend of the electrification of vehicles around the world. But I think instantly many people firstly think about the lithium-ion batteries. It must be lithium, but actually graphite is such a core component of these batteries. To paint that picture, did you want to speak about kind of graphite's role in that and the opportunity that EcoGraf's trying to feed into?
Yeah, no, that's right. We live in West Australia, and everybody would think it's a lithium battery, but in fact, the major raw component is graphite, and that's what we're planning to provide into the battery. It's over half the battery weight, and the battery anode is made up of largely natural spherical graphite, is what we're going to produce, and synthetic, and it's generally about a 50-50. We use a general 50-50 rule between natural and synthetic, depending on the anode manufacturers, and a little bit of silicon. And there is no doubt we're going to see greater silicon coming into the battery. We've seen on Tesla Day, Volkswagen Power Day, all talking about improving silicon. But the issue with silicon is it's got expansion problems, and it has a lot of capacity. And if you can get in the battery, there's better performance. But safety is a #1 priority for the car manufacturers. And the good thing about graphite is it's very safe, and they can manufacture it. And we're going to manufacture it into a very safe, usable product for the EV manufacturer. So graphite's a major component into the battery supply chain. And no matter what battery chemistry, I should add, whether it's a lithium-ion phosphate or a nickel, manganese, cobalt chemistry, the anode is consistent.
And an interesting thing playing out, not just in the EV battery material space, but more broadly with the supply chains at the moment, has been the localization and diversification of supply chains. This, of course, is happening with currently a lot of the development and production coming from China. How will EcoGraf help to differentiate from that?
Look, we want to be one of the first battery anode manufacturers producing a purified spherical graphite outside of China as an alternate supply into these markets. We chose Australia for several reasons. Firstly, we had very strong customer support out of Europe. We could see the the strong demand from the Australian government to support modern manufacturing. You know, Australia needs to manufacture their battery minerals. The value proposition is enormous. Mining the minerals, we only achieve about 5% of the value. So going downstream and manufacturing the battery minerals is really critical to the Australian government and our own minerals industry. And I guess also we saw, because we're in West Australia, the Kwinana-Rockingham zone is really the hub of the battery minerals in Australia. And CSIRO just recently reported their critical minerals roadmap, and all roads head towards Kwinana-Rockingham. So they're the three key reasons why we've selected Australia. We think the importance of visible, strong traceability, reputation, a good reputation of value adding, and protection of IP are all critical reasons for also supporting Australia. We also see in Europe, as you do and your viewers, the enormous investment going on in Europe. And there is unprecedented investment going on. And what the Europeans, supported by the European Commission and the European governments, they want the supply chain to be located in Europe. So we see very much the battery supply chains moving out of Asia into Europe, and we want to participate in those regions. And we look at Europe in probably three key zones: the northern Nordic countries, Germany, centric and Eastern Europe, and then Western Europe, led by France, Spain, and the UK. So very much localization of these supply chain hubs. And then you've got the US. We think also India is an interesting country, I should say, for downstream manufacturing.
There's an incredible amount of opportunities, and I would love to just start with Kwinana there at the moment. Of course, we know 5,000 tonnes initially, and then with the stages ramping up to 20,000 tonnes eventually. How's progression? Can we speak about some timelines, and how are things shaping up at the moment?
Yeah, no, we've expanded our team. We've got a really solid team now to take this project forward. We're working on the permitting approvals process. We're finalising the EPC arrangement with GR Engineering, and the next few months is going to be an exciting time for the company to bring all that together. We expect the construction period for the first 5,000 tonnes, which comes in at a capital cost at around 30 million Aussie, to be funded by our own equity. And we've been working with Export Finance Australia, who've recently supported the project with $35 million US to take that initial 5,000 tonnes to an additional 15,000 tonnes to take the total production to 20. We've very much staged the production to match market demand. And we think that commencing with 5,000 tonnes is still about right in the market on an ex-China basis.
Of course, you've got an initial offtake out of there as well. Any other commercial discussions that you can speak about, and also the potential end use cases as well for the products?
Very much so. We're working with a couple of customers that we believe will culminate in further offtake. Our first major sales and offtake agreement was signed with ThyssenKrupp out of Germany, and we see the European market as a very exciting market in the future. But the reality is the Northeast Asian market is where the demand is currently, and they're the customers we're talking to at the moment. And like Europe, we'll see migration into the US as well, and demand being sought there.
And then casting our eyes over to Europe, there was some recent news surrounding Sweden, but also continuing to look at some other locations potentially in Germany. Did you just want to talk about how all of that's playing out at the moment?
Yeah, that's right. We've secured an industrial site in Sweden. We're drawn to Sweden for several reasons. Obviously, the ones I've previously mentioned, but Sweden has green energy. They have a lot of hydro electricity, so it's green, it's cheap, and we're drawn to that position. And we've been working with the German Trade and Investment government agency out of Germany to finalise a site in Germany as well. So we're working on both fronts. The evaluation in Sweden, we're expecting to take 12 months. We're going to leverage off the environmental and permitting that we're carrying out in Australia. We see the footprint being very similar. So there's a lot of synergy and advantages of building Kwinana and then following it up with a European site. At the moment, there is no demand. There's very little demand or no demand in Europe. So there's no point starting with Europe. Very much our focus is the Kwinana, West Australian operation.
You've discussed a couple of other regions as well, potentially the US, potentially India. Of course, these are the initial areas that you spoke about in Australia and Europe. Is there longer term the potential for more facilities in more regions as well?
That's a very good point. And our business plan is securing as much of the market as we possibly can. We believe we've got a very clean, green, alternate product, very well suited to the new consumers and end customers. And the strategy is very much to, secure as much of that as possible. We believe we can scale up these operations in Australia from 20 onto further production levels, similarly in Europe. But as we are seeing, countries are wanting to capture and localize and regionalize the supply chains. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is, the value proposition that it brings from value adding, and that's what we're trying to capture in Australia, but also the protection of IP. That is really one of the strong reasons why we're seeing the regionalisation. The IP of these batteries is really important to the customers, and shipping products around the globe and not having it in their own backyard makes a lot of sense. So we see the supply lines being regionalised globally, but there's going to be certain production hubs that are established like Kwinana, Rockingham.
And it's interesting as well, I heard that when you were developing the process, you benchmarked it against some of the other product. I think 9 out of the 11 were successful, which means that you're not going to be reliant on your own source. But of course, you do have that potential source out of Tanzania. Did you want to speak about the Tanzanian opportunity as well that develops in the supply?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great observation. We've spent 2018 and 2019 evaluating the global sources of graphite from existing producers to really make the downstream developments standalone and not reliant on the Tanzanian graphite supply. Ultimately, we believe Tanzania will come into the supply line, but we've got some work to do. We're working on a financing through Germany's largest state-owned bank, KfW IPEX, and we're working with the government to get the framework and the financing framework approved. We're very confident that will occur. There's been some really positive changes in Tanzania over the last 6 months, and we see Tanzania as a very favourable location for the new age demand of graphite, and our Panko project will play a major role in that. We're planning to come on into production with 60,000 tonnes of natural flake graphite, and that's around 10% of the market, the global market for natural crystalline graphite, and we think that's about right. But our Panko project can be scaled up, multiple times greater than that. So we have plans in place to match our production output in Tanzania to match with the uptake in battery graphite as well.
Just those 2 pillars alone would be enough to keep your hands full. But of course, EcoGraf have got a third pillar as well with the battery recycling. At the moment, doing some testing with the Korean recycler, and you've had some fantastic results coming through. Did you want to speak about that?
Yes, look, that's been, we've been looking at the recycling business for the last 18 months. We knew we had developed a powerful purification process, and the recycling business evolved out of recognising how powerful this purification process is, and we started applying it to recycling, looking at the recycling of battery anode materials. But I guess, the current recycling industry is just solely focused on the cathode minerals, recovering the nickel, cobalt, copper, and we're seeing strong European legislation around new policy changes around greater recycling. So the batteries will have to be recycled, and the carbon anode material will have to be recycled. We've identified 2 key areas: production scrap and black mass after the hydrometallurgical process of recovered the cathode materials at the end of life batteries. Our focus is very much on the production scrap, and we see that as a really interesting market. The production scrap market is quite a large market. We estimate between 10 to 30% of production ends up as scrap. There's a lot of testing, a lot of end-of-run batches cannot be used again. So this is quite an interesting market. And the importance of recycling the scrap, we believe, is not only can we recycle it and potentially put it back into the battery, but if we can do that successfully, it'll go to lowering the battery unit cost and also lowering carbon emissions. 40% of the battery footprint is, for 40% of the EV emissions footprint is the battery. So recycling the scrap can make a big dent in unit cost and emissions, and we're quite excited about that. We've signed our first agreement with Sungil High-Tech, which is South Korea's based in South Korea, one of Asia's largest lithium-ion battery recyclers, and we've been working with them very closely. And one of the latest samples we've processed is a production scrap, and it looks like we've been able to bring that back into original spec in terms of carbon grade, particle size distribution, and impurities. So that sample is now on its way, and we're underway with a coin cell test. You know, it'll take a little bit of work. It'll take collaboration. We believe that the recycling of the carbon anode material the solution will be circular, and partnership with battery manufacturers, EV manufacturers is required. The leadership from those groups to support the carbon being reintroduced is critical. So we're working on that front, and it's really an exciting opportunity. Out of all our three core businesses, we've received the most interest on this front, and I think it's timely that, you know, this new age transition to clean energy is going to require a lot of recycling.
Yeah, we've seen that real focus on ESG continue to pick up pace. So I've got to ask you as well, as the leader in the company, I know you've got so much on your plate already. You must be so busy, but how much attention do you pay to the share price? It's been a whirlwind run for ASX EGR over the past year. And any reflections on?
Oh, look, I've got a great team. I've got a really strong board and management team now in place. Obviously, the share price, we're a public company. We do pay attention to it, and it's nice to see it going up and rewarding some of our larger shareholders. We've had a really terrific support from First Sentier, which is our largest shareholder. Without them over the last 5 years, I think this would have been a different company. We've had their support for the last 5 years, and they've been really great together with some of the other major supporters of the company. So it's just really nice to see the stock price, you know, see a little bit of re-rating. I think the value proposition that we bring, you know, there's a lot more to come in terms of rolling out our full strategy. We've had this, the company's strategy has been unfolding, particularly over the last 12 months, really pleasantly. And I think the next few months is going to be a really exciting time for the company.
FY21 has been a transformative year for EcoGraf. If you're laying your eyes out ahead in a further 12 months, where will EcoGraf be positioned?
Oh, look, we'd like to be one of the first battery anode manufacturers outside of Asia. We love our graphite project in Nepanko, and we see that coming on stream. And, you know, the recycling, we've just announced plans to build we've announced plans to around the capital estimate for a pilot scale plant. So, and we've got a lot of product development programs going on. Innovation is key going forward in this industry. So we're very focused on innovation and new product development. And I think you'll see something coming out shortly on that front.
Did you have any final reflections that you wanted to leave with those prospective shareholders or those who have been following the EGR story so far, Andrew?
Oh, absolutely. It's been a journey so far, but I think the future and the demand for graphite, graphitic carbon is the most conductive industrial mineral. No matter what the new technology comes on stream, graphite and carbon will be very closely required and be thereabouts. So we think the company's strategy has a huge future, and the value proposition is attractive. And what we've developed so far around all our production is just matched to today's market. So we very much see scaling up is the key here to match market demand. So we've got a lot on, and we're building the team to continue the process.
Congratulations on a phenomenal past year. Plenty more still to go in the pipeline as well. It's been an absolute pleasure catching up, and appreciate your time.
No, thanks very much. Look forward to the follow-up.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation. When thinking about the electrification and the adoption of EVs around the world, everyone instantly thinks of lithium. But graphite is another significant component, as discussed, in lithium-ion batteries. So it's going to be fascinating to see how the story of EcoGraf continues to develop moving forward. We'd love to know your thoughts, so drop in a comment below what you think about EcoGraf and where do you think ASX EGR heads from here. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share it out as well. This past period, we've interviewed a range of different ASX CEOs on the channel, so we'll leave links to those up above that you can check out after this one. We're the ASX Investor channel, and we make daily videos talking about the stock market, investing, and we find and analyse the best growth stocks. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you've got your bell notifications turned on as well, so you won't miss a daily episode, and we'd love to have you join the community. A big thank you to Andrew for joining us on the channel. It was fascinating to hear more about the EcoGraf story. Thank you all for joining us. For now, stay well and happy investing.